Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you guys are doing well today. Swiss watch exports were announced for July 2021. We did cover them on our podcast earlier, so if you are not listening to our podcast, be sure to go over where you listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can check out our podcast there. We release podcasts every Tuesday. But Swiss watch exports were released for July 2021. They were mainly positive, but had some signs of an interesting recovery that is sort of taking place and will continue to take place over the next couple months. Overall, they were positive results compared to 2019, and obviously is a nice sort of bright result compared to this time last year. So I'm going to go over them as I always do, and then at the end of this video I will give predictions for what I think the results are going to be for the month of August. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'll give you a quick summary as well of what the results were for June. Let me just pull up our article that we've written here. If you don't know, we have every time we write one of these articles, every time we make one of these videos, we have a corresponding article for every single one. And when we do the Swiss watch exports, we go a little bit more in depth on our article on our website. So if you want to read the article that corresponds with this video, be sure to head over to our website, lifeonthewrist.com. You can go to the editorial section of our website. So last month we saw really positive results, up 12.5% compared to June 2020. Swiss watch exports were just shy of 2 billion Swiss francs, 1.9 billion Swiss francs. We saw more expensive watches being purchased from that sort of 500, 3,000 Swiss franc range, or over 3,000 Swiss franc range. And for the most part, it was fairly positive. I predicted that July was going to come in at about 8%, based on sort of holiday spending, the travel that people are going to be doing. And you know, when you get into those sort of environments, you end up wanting to spend money, maybe mark the occasion with a watch here and there. So I think that's where sort of my prediction came. And so yeah, that was my prediction for that month. If we look at this month, which I'm going to pull up right now, Swiss watch exports totaled over 2 billion Swiss francs, which is a really big milestone. They totaled 2,047 million Swiss francs, which was a growth of 7.6%. So my 8% prediction was just off. Really encouraging signs to see that Swiss watch exports continue to grow compared to 2019 results. So, the Federation for Swiss Horology decided to not compare to 2020 because these results are going to be massive. But if you did compare to 2019, it was actually a growth rate of about 29% compared to 2020. So either way, it's positive results. I think we're not seeing those 3-digit growth rates that we were at the beginning of the year if you compare it to 2020, but still a significant change there. Wristwatches really drove most of the exports for the month of July, totaling 1.9 billion Swiss francs, up 8.2%. Other products were down to 2.8%. If we look at the 12-month moving average, we can see that obviously we're on that positive trend upwards from a fairly negative sort of beginning part of the 12-month moving average. We're just above 20%. Which is an encouraging sign, and obviously I think this is obviously inflated. So what we'll see is once the sort of negative results from the last 12 months work their way out of the 12-month moving average, will probably normalize, and that's really where I think the fruit of the pudding is going to come. One of the things that I'm going to talk about when we get to the watches by price category is what's actually going to happen to that 12-month moving average, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So positive results there. We continue to see the sort of S-shaped curve for the 12-month moving average. If we go to wristwatches by material, we can see that across the board, again, the 8.2% growth rate for wristwatches. But what's really noticeable here is that the units changed year over year, or I guess 2019 to 2021, significantly dropped. So a drop of 17.5% in units, whereas if you look at the actual total Swiss francs spent, it was 8.2% growth. I think this is telling you that people are not just buying a bunch of watches; they're buying specific watches that I think that consumers are looking to purchase, and it's making, I think, sort of shrinking the pie, if you want to say it that way. It's really focusing sort of consumer habits on what watches do we really want, are really in demand, and those are the watches that we're going to purchase. I think maybe some of the auxiliary watches that you have in your showrooms, or you are looking to sell to some customers that kind of fill out your booth a little bit, may not be being purchased. And I think that's also again shown in the watches by price category. So if you look at this sort of chart here, you can see that everything below 500 Swiss francs saw huge declines in both units and value exported. 20% decline in watches between 200 and 500 Swiss francs in both units and in value. And then if you look, 500 to 3,000 Swiss francs are relatively unchanged. And then above 3,000 Swiss francs, you can see a massive increase, 9% increase in units, 13.6% increase in value. I think this is really telling the story of what the watch market is at right now. The pandemic definitely had a huge impact on employment and people's disposable income. Over the last year, it's been tough for many people, and so buying watches is not something that maybe they're going to be accustomed to really doing. But what we're seeing here is those who have a little bit more disposable income are spending it, and they're spending it on watches that are a little bit more expensive. Now, from a consumer's perspective, I think that sort of rings bells of, I'm going to buy a Rolex because I know that it's going to hold value, I'm not going to end up losing it, as opposed to buying something a little bit less expensive, and so in which might lose some of its value along the way. I think that's what a lot of these dealers are doing. They're buying watches that they can quickly sell to consumers who are really looking for them, and I think that's where this sort of trend is coming. And because of this, I think there's going to be disparity in our 12-month moving average. There are only so many watches that this sort of more fortunate group of individuals who have disposable income can buy before it sort of becomes saturated, and they're not all looking for these specific watches. And so I mentioned that the 12-month moving average sort of has this S shape where it's gone from really negative to really positive, and I actually think we're going to see, once the sort of negative results come out, we're going to see this really close to zero change unless the economy picks up at a higher pace. So I think this really is a great example of what's happening in the economy as a whole. If you look at the main markets, typical names that you're going to see in the main markets, the 6 top main markets made up 54.6% of the pie. We have the United States of America in first, then China, Hong Kong, Japan, United Kingdom, and Singapore in that order for the top 6 markets. The change compared to 2019 is insane for a lot of these markets. China up 75% comparatively speaking to last year, to 2019, which is absolutely insane. The United States up 48.5%. I think the vaccination rollout definitely plays a key role in that type of growth rate. We did see some negative results. Hong Kong and Japan and Singapore saw negative results, which I think just they had a very strong 2019. I think that's sort of why we have such negative results. The United Kingdom also saw a positive 12% result as well. If we look at the top 30, what's really interesting about this list is they're now showing us the 2020 to 2021 comparison, which they were not doing in previous months. So we can actually see what it looks like in comparison to 2020. It's not triple digits for everyone, but significant growth rates for sure. What is very interesting is that if you look at 2019 to 2021 for example, the United States, we see a plus 48.5% increase. If you look at 2020 to 2021 for the United States, we see a 49.5% difference. That's only about a percent difference between 2019 and 2021. So sure, we've maybe recovered, but I would say that it's pretty insane to see that the difference between 2019 and 2020 for the United States was not very different. I think that might have something to do with maybe consumer habits around this time in 2020. I think this was when people were trying to get back and opening up and doing a little bit more, being a little bit more active in the summer months before the pandemic took hold of the world again. So I'd say like the left side of the top 30 markets is really interesting if you compare the numbers for some of them. Any noticeable ones? Number 30, Ireland saw plus 799% increase. Obviously, it's a smaller market, so a certain purchase can really sway those numbers. But still, I should also say like doing 1 million Swiss francs worth of exports is a lot for any nation. So the top 30 markets consist of 93% of total exports for Swiss watch exports in total. If we take a look at the regions, again, very similar kind of thought process as what we've discussed previously. America is doing really well. Europe basically unchanged compared to 2019, I believe this is. Yes, compared to 2019, I think the rollout of vaccinations are a little bit slower in those countries, but also I think economies recover at different rates, and I think that has a lot to contribute. That's contributing a lot to it. Asia plus 33.7%. They're already at a really high mark already, so that's fairly encouraging. The split up of the share of the market is fairly consistent with what we've seen for a very long time, Asia making up over half of all exports. So looking forward to August, I think this has been very similar to July. Things are opening up, people are traveling, attempting to maybe get their lives back on track and being the new normal and venturing out of their comfort zones. What is pretty insane, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it doesn't look like I covered Swiss watch exports for the month of August 2020. I'm looking back and I really cannot find it, which is sort of insane to think, because I've covered this consistently. But apparently I'm just missing everything. So let me see if I can pull it up on the Federation of Swiss Watches. I apologize for this. I would like to find it. Okay. If possible, I would like to find it. But it doesn't seem like I'm really gonna have any luck with it. Anyway, I could probably find it if I spend a little bit more time, but because it will take me a little bit of time to go for it. I'm going to go off the benchmark of September of 2020. Or I guess September 2020 exports amounts were 1.6 billion Swiss francs. For the most part, I think the economy is going to be fairly similar in the month of August. I think people are trying to spend money. I think they're looking to continue to travel and get into positions where they are trying to enjoy their summer holidays. I think we're going to see much of the same results. I'd expect it to be around 2 billion Swiss francs again, which I think is about an 8% growth rate as well. So I'm going to go with 6 to 8%, probably maybe closer to the 6% growth rate for August 2021. If you guys have some thoughts on what the export results are going to be, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think about July's results. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about them. I think they're positive, but there are some worrying signs that are sort of the undertone of what this report sort of is going into. If you are new to Live from the Wrist and you like these types of videos, we do cover the exports every single month. So be sure to head over to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to us while you're there. We cover a range of topics, but exports is one of them. If you want some more in-depth look at this topic, be sure to go to livefromthewrist.com, and you can go to the editorial section of our website, where we have an article for every video that we post on our YouTube channel. So be sure to head over there. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button for us, it really does help us out with our YouTube analytics. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.